So then we are back with more understandings from the time of the second tabernacle services. So then we can understand more what is coming in the future in terms of the prophecies. And people would be a whole lot at ease understanding the importance of the holy city when it returns, giving then the proper directives to the nations as they used to give back during the time after Yohanan. They were very popular. Those times then are returning because the time of 1,000 years given to Nahash then ended in 08. And then comes the time of restoration as per the prophecies. Because the Creator very wisely, He then established times and seasons as then prophecy related with it. And the Messiah spent time with the Samaritans, indicating a couple thousand years then of rulership. And then this time expired in 08. And there is not much time left as the signs are showing itself in terms of the weather changes. And then the Messiah said would come earthquakes, pestilences and famines in many places of the world. And he was speaking then the time where his father then, while in charge of the first tabernacle services, then wrote these areas, explaining then what the future would bring in terms of the shift of leadership from himself as the Creator, and then during the time of his son, when he then gave the order to go therefore and form holy cities. So then he did, and given us then what is coming in the next 20 years. The end of these ages is very close, because 20 years is the very maximum from this time until 2031. We understand that the autumn feast is going to be precisely 490 days. So there are many theories of these people over there trying to make up stories. It is absolutely nonsense, because the Messiah already had given the entire explanation of the time of the end, and that you can understand in terms of Luke, and then what it means in terms of the closing of the age with a shout of sulfur. Then the Messiah also provided many other aspects in terms of the comparison of the time and the people's hardening of understanding of the scripture, because they came from during the time of the deceit. And then he said people would be given to relationships and building a barn and having another relationship and then having kids and having family and going to work as usual. That's why the Messiah very wisely, he pointed out the time of Noah and the time of Lot. They were doing precisely, and they were not even expecting any other abnormal situation other than the completion of their own lusts, until the time had expired. And then came the judgment in terms of the destruction of the people, either by water or then in the cities of the plain by the shout of sulfur. If you take a trip over there, you will find pieces of sulfur laid on a land. You can light up a match to it, comes out a blue flame, and then this flame you can melt metal, nearly pure sulfur. That's why the Messiah then, he said at the end, when he comes and he rescues his people, then comes the shout of sulfur. But then many of the people, they're not going to be interested in it. They're going to think on the way they were always thinking, all the junkies, and having family and having a kid and then having a family and then having a cat and a dog and doing the mundane until the time expires. The Messiah was not thinking of these people doing evil. Not only doing evil, but then those people not aware of the coming of the Messiah. Though they are nice people, yeah, they were given to relationships and doing the mundane, and then the time came. So the Messiah then is warning his people, not being then a people caught by surprise when he would return. That's why he was saying then what he said, the time of the end, the autumn feast, for his people to be absolutely prepared, because the Gentiles, they have no part in it other than understanding the Messiah's completion of the spring feast, and then being in the Messiah, drafted in a vine because he was the living Torah, the living instructions, and then the Gentiles are grafted in a vine via the Torah. That's where then many people begin to falter, because they are thinking of a Messiah outside of the Holy Torah, but you can't think of a Messiah outside of Torah because he was and is the living Torah. He would never abolish his own teachings and then being outside of the Holy Tabernacle. Doesn't make any sense. So then we must understand the work of the Messiah in a Holy of Holies of each holy city, and then giving directives to the nations as it was after the time of Yohanan. So as we understand, there is no church. Church is a fraud. It was Nehashtan's time that it started with Constantine, and he was a murderer. Obviously, he had to be started and then with Nehashtan himself in Constantine, changing the laws and the times and the seasons, and then he began to persecute the holy cities up to 1009. It was the movement generated during the time of Constantine. And the reason why? Because he was envious of the cities giving directives to the nations. And then came 1009, the city was destroyed, and then the holy cities were destroyed, and there were no more directives. There was only war. So then Nehashtan had to come up with his own lies, his understanding of what he thought was heaven. So rather than having come from heaven in terms of the holy city, then he thought people would have to behave to go up to heaven. Obviously, there was his only choice of then manipulating the people. Rather than reading the scripture and understanding the city coming from heaven when the earth is renewed, and then people being then given a glorified body only after they are then coming from the dead, then Nehashtan had to do the contrary. People have to behave in order to go up to heaven. Obviously, because it's a time of manipulation and deceit. However, if you study the scripture from the original state, you're going to find there is only the holy city coming from heaven. And then those people who went in the Messiah, the rest in the Messiah, they're going to be raised first when the earth is then refurbished. So that's why the Messiah had placed the note in Luke stating then they're going to be given the relationships, they're going to be building a home, and then having another job and maintain until the time expired, caught unawares. So then the Messiah gives this understanding because he knows they're going to be clinging back to the old junkies. When the Messiah was then healing the Gadarene demoniac, the people of the town, they were afraid of the Messiah. You can read it for yourself. There was the demoniac, and he was amongst the tombs, and he was then very fierce. And the Messiah came, and he was healed. And then rather than the people welcome him, the Messiah, then they wanted him out of their city. Because the people, they were evil. Rather than welcoming the Messiah, they rejected him. So then the understanding of the time of the end is very similar. The Messiah explained the Torah, the prophets. He is the living Torah and the prophets. He must be then encountered in the Holy of Holies of each city. Yet the people have a choice of then believing the old junkies. There is no Messiah outside of the Holy Tabernacles. But then the choice is of the person. You can have the whole world for yourself. You can have money, car, job, relationship, family, whatsoever the world can give you. However, if you are not in the Messiah, then at the end, what is it for you then to have your soul lost? That's what the Messiah said. What is the gain for you if you gain the whole world at the end, then your soul is lost? Going to the chamber of torment. What is that for you then, getting the whole world and then have your soul at torment at the end? So the Messiah said, endure trials and tribulations, and being with the Messiah, explaining what the Torah is, explaining the prophets, explaining the gospel, as per the original instructions, then you have your soul saved. So you can either enjoy this world and be embraced by this evil generation, and have what you want, and your soul then is absolutely lost at the end. Because there is no salvation outside of the Holy Tabernacles. And this is valid for the set apart and also the Gentiles. That's why the holy city then is going to be in the land of Africa, as per then the prophecy of Yeshayahu. Because it's going to be built in a position where then no person outside of the holy plan of mandates of Yahweh would ever be in the land, while the city then is being built. And the Messiah is going to have his way, because whatsoever he said in the name of Yahweh, he was Yahweh in person, must be done and returned to him completed. That's why you find then the tabernacle in the land of fears, because there is no lie over there. If you are not sent by Yahweh himself, when you lie, your life is on the line. It's a very dangerous place. What Yahweh is saying is he wants his city to be built in truth, as it was during the time of the king of Babylon. He said if those demoniacs of his court interpreting dreams did not know the dream or its interpretation, then they would be cut to pieces. So the similitude is very, very, very close. So then we find ourselves during the time of when the Holy Ark of the Covenant was then coming from the land of the Philistines, and we understand they were plagued with so many plagues because of the Holy Ark. When it was returned on a cart drawn by animals never used before, and then these animals brought the Ark back to the land of Beth Shemesh, and people were very joyous. And wheresoever this ark went with the people, besides then obviously a person trying to straighten it out and got slaughtered because of it, because they forgot the ark had to be taken by the holy priests on their shoulders, as per the instructions. And then later, wheresoever this object was found at, the land was prosperous. So then Yahweh has selected this end of time, Africa, or the land of Kush, the northern part of Africa, central north, where he's going to establish his tabernacle, as per the design of the Messiah. Obviously, the land around it, as they observe and obey what the Messiah told them to do in terms of their relationship with the city, not what the Gentiles are going to be doing facing the Scripture. It is understanding the position of the people of the land of Africa as Gentiles and relating themselves with the holy city. So there are principles that must be established when the city then is ready and functioning. It's not the people of the land that are going to be functioning first. First, as per the design of whomever Yahweh then makes a choice of having these people over there in the land, and then constructing the holy city as per the time of Yohanan. Then the relationship of the Gentiles in the city, they're going to be such, and the land is going to prosper. That's why you find Asian countries very prosperous these days, because they had direct teachings from the holy cities. So they begin to analyze what Yahweh has in plan for Africa, but must be done as per his instructions, and those who he sends, and then those people should be listened. As the city then is constructed, then there is a whole style of government that must be developed around it. And the city will prosper, so as the land around it. In any case, when you begin then to read where the Ark of the Covenant was at, you can read and observe it was an absolutely prosperity time, and then people were very glad. But those must be done as per the instructions. However, the instructions are going to be then delegated as per then the set apart, or then those who are enlightened or mandated by Yahweh himself to do the work. The others simply they observe it from afar and they help as much as they can. And then when the city is ready, then there is a special close relationship with the Gentiles and the holy city. But be sure of it, because they are going to prosper. That's why Yahweh has chosen this time where the land is absolutely upside down, so to speak, so people can observe the mighty works of Yahweh. So they can understand there is a Creator, came a Messiah a long time ago. He is a Messiah of principles. He gave them the understanding of the Torah, the prophets, and the writings, and he is not interested in control of the other nations. He's interested in merely giving them directives as it was given during the time of the past. However, then the prosperity comes as a result of listening to what Yahweh has to say. So then the world can try as much as they want. They want to build their own cisterns, try to understand the context. They want to have their own works of their own hands. They do not want to be subjected to any deity. They want to be absolutely at liberty to do whatever they want, if it's sin or not. And that's not the way Yahweh works. Yahweh works on a certain principles, and He establishes then His people to do what He has then planned for them to do. In terms of a Gentile living, there is not a word specified in what makes them part of the holy prophecies in terms of then obeying certain laws. There are only remarks because of the involvement with the set apart. But if they wish to have their cities also prospering, it is very wise listening to what Yahweh has to say. It's not going to be the way the people think. If they are not prepared to do what Yahweh has for them to say, then Yahweh takes other avenues, and those are not as nice as if people would be listening to Him. So while in its early stages, it is very wise, make sure people understand the principles of the Holy Torah, the prophets, and the writings, where we are at, where we stand, how much time is left, and the schedule ahead. Very wise. Please stay tuned, much more coming up, because then you're going to verify what would be then the prosperity coming as a result of the holy city. Please stay tuned.